Welcome to RPG Book Club, the podcast where we play a little bit of a video game and talk about how it makes us feel. I am Sam Allman.
I'm Maddy.
And I'm David Bernard Houck.
And today we'll be talking about the entirety of the video game. Let me flex some muscles here, because I have it in Japanese. Kaeru no tame ni kane wa naru, or as a direct translation, for the frog the bell tolls. Eli asked for a week off to handle some personal stuff, so we figured we'd finally play this game, which was supposed to be our first ever bonus game, and we kept putting it off for over a year.
I'm so glad you waited until I was being a guest, because I've been wanting to play it for a long time, too.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah,
this
game is awesome.
Yeah. So what's cool about it is it was made by Nintendo R&D1, aka the creators of the Game Boy and Metroid and Kid Icarus and like most of their IP. And they also used this engine to make Zelda's Link's Awakening, which is hilarious because this game came out first, and you can almost read it as a direct parody of Zelda's Link's Awakening. It was like a pre-parody of the game that they were about to make. And it's dope. We'll get into a lot of that as we go along. So this game was never released in English, so we're playing a fan translation, but all of us have Smash, and the Prince is in Smash, so that counts. And the fan translation we'll be playing is one by Ain Nihin, I'm guessing would be how you pronounce that. But it's probably the best fan translation of any game I have ever played. It is spectacular.
Yeah.
It feels like...
I was just going to say it's up there with Mother 3.
Yeah. It feels like an official Nintendo translation of the era. Like, every single joke, it has lands. There's not a single bit where it feels like a tropey translation from Japanese type thing. Like, nothing feels awkward. It's good. I think that Nintendo should just buy this translation and put it on the eShop so that people can play the game that the Prince is in, since he's an assist trophy in Smash.
Yeah.
But
I've thought if they do a Game Boy Classic, this would be a great game to like localize and be like never before released in America.
Yeah, because it's good. It's weird,
it is.
And we'll get into all of the reasons that it's weird. Because, like I said, it's a parody of Zelda, but is an action platformer visual novel with fake combat.
Yep.
Yeah. So
yeah, when I played just a little bit of it a long time ago, I was like, "Oh, this is sort of like a game like Faerun," but no, everything's fake.
Everything's fake. Like all that the combat is a test to see if you explored good enough, and if you did, then you beat the battle, and that's it.
Quick question: who's the name of the translator?
Ain Nihin. That's at least their username. It's EIEN, then Ni Ni and Hen HEN.
Okay. I'm trying to make sure that I play the same translation as y'all.
You probably did. It's the only one I know that's out there.
Okay, it is. Yeah, I was just confirming. Just because I also agree that it's fantastic, but there was one particular joke that y'all referenced, and I didn't ever see that joke. I guess I'll get to that later. I was just like, what's that part that Bernard and Sam were joking about? But maybe I misread y'all's comments.
Maybe so.
Anyway, I thought I would just confirm before we started. Yes, I also did play the same translation, which is good because there's not usually two translation hacks of one game, unless it's a Final Fantasy. Yeah, it's a lot of work. Usually one person does it and everyone's like, "Cool, we're good."
Yeah.
In case y'all were wondering why I'm talking so quietly, it's because of reasons. My roommate that I lived with for the last 6 months decided that it's rude to talk every Wednesday at 8 a.m. for an hour and a half, which is weird because that's the first time that he said that.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna look up other games that I'm Nihin translated because dang, this is good.
Yeah. It's real good. But let's actually talk about the game now, as if we haven't been talking about the game. Yeah. But let's talk about the plot.
Nope, we got it right at the beginning. The game's got a fantastic title screen
with a cacophony of a music track.
Yeah. Like the second the Game Boy works is like you like just flick it on with a little gloopy little flick switch, and there's no logos or anything. Just the second you flick it on, the music starts blasting at you, and I think it's a phenomenal piece of music. It's very mysterious and very, I don't know. It feels like a fairy tale storybook opening, and it has a little explanation of a little bit of the plot. So who are the two characters in this damn game?
So you have Richard and the Prince of Sable, who you get to name. And I remember now that there was a pre-roll and that I accidentally hit a button and skipped it. And then I used restore points on my 3DS and I never went back to do the beginning. Oh. So do you remember what was there?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. It simply just says it's just like once upon a time or something there were two princes. There was the Prince of Sable and the Prince of whatever, and
both alike in dignity.
Yeah, I think it had a couple other sentences about them, like for flavor. But then it's just like, this is the story of their big adventure, and then it has the title screen.
Okay.
And the way that the title screen rolls and stuff is just really, really, really good. And this game made a very strong impression right off the bat.
Yeah, it was really cool. And if that didn't catch you, the first little bit will, because like the first joke is like 2 lines in, and you're like, oh, this game is special. So the game starts with you and Prince Richard fencing, and you suck. And Richard has always beaten you. He's beaten you like 366 times in a row or something like that. And then somebody runs in and says that the neighboring country has been attacked and Princess Tiramisu has gone missing. So Richard runs off to save the day and tells you to stay back because you can't swords. So you get mad and try and find another boat. So you buy it for $1 million because money is no object for royalty. Yep. And like at that point, I didn't realize that your coin counter at the bottom of the screen literally said $2 million.
Yeah, you don't notice till that point, and then all of a sudden, here's like, here, take $1 million, and it ticks down from 2 million to 1 million.
It actually starts out maxed out at 9,999,999, and then you spend 8,900,909 on the boat. But damn. Yeah, you go to get on the boat that he is getting on, and he just kicks you off and is like, "You're bad at swords, go away." And then you try and sneak onto another boat, and he's like, "Hey, trying to stow away, are you?" And you're like, "I don't have time for this. I'll buy the boat."
Also, even before that, it's like after Prince Richard leaves on your boat, Prince in my case, Prince Freg in all caps. I decided that I should be like, those kids where it's like, well, the game is called For the Frog the Bell Tolls, so I'm gonna name my guy Frog. It's actually Freg. Yeah. Ran with my friend around the kid who named his save file on Halo because he thought the main character's name was Halo. He hadn't played the game, to be fair. He was going to play the game, but so he's like, I just figured that was the name of the guy.
That's so great.
But anyway, Prince Freg is like, where am I going to find a boat? And then you just walk to the right, and it's on the next screen.
And when you pay for the boat, a little bag of money appears next to you, and the guy who owns the boat flies through the air. And then you get on the boat and leave, and then he comes back and falls into the water. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so great.
It rules. So you go on your journey to the Salad Kingdom or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
That's a joke.
It has a French name, and I bet it's the name of a pastry because so is everything else in this game.
It's called like millefeuille, which I believe literally means like 1,000 leaves, but I'm sure it's the name of a pastry.
Millie Seesaw.
Probably a pastry that's like folded a bunch of times. The French love folding shit.
Probably.
Oh, yeah. They should know.
So when you get to the new place, everybody is saying like, "Oh, you're the chosen one. You're the best ever. Like everything will be fine because you're here." And you're just like, "Yeah, that's great." But then one person is like, "Prince Richard said that you'd be stupid and naive and be easily flattered, so everyone was just trying to get you on their side."
I love how Prince Burb in my game. I love how Prince Burb is just like really full of himself and really egotistical. Yeah. I love it. It's hilarious.
What's funny is that he's egotistical, but he's also like not like selfish. It's funny. Well, I mean, he is sometimes, but he's really nice to people. Is the funny thing. So usually you don't get that combination of like self, egotistical jerk, but also is like giving people $1 million all the time and always wanting to help everybody.
Well, he's probably like, I'm such an awesome person. Of course I'm going to help everybody because I'm an awesome person. That's what awesome people do.
I definitely think that's part of it. Yeah. He's like, I'm the hero, right?
Yeah, it's great. So after you find out that everybody was just trying to get on your good side, you find out that the evil Crokians had kidnapped the princess and that she's north in the palace. So you head that way. And then we start getting in our first fights. Describe this battle system, guys.
It's fake.
It's fake.
It's mostly fake.
There are a lot of parts where you have to avoid battles in order to get somewhere with enough health. So in that sense, it's real.
Yeah. So what happens is whenever you encounter an enemy, it goes into like battle mode, where you and the enemy both are like frozen in place, and also your health bar and their health bar appears at the bottom of the screen. And then you just start going at each other, auto-hitting. You hit them, they hit you. You hit them, they hit you. And there's no RNG to the hitting. Every time you hit them, it does a set amount of damage based on your current power level and weapon, and they do a certain amount of damage to you based on your current equipment and defense value, which does not increase through experience points or anything like that. And you hit each other till one of you is dead. You can hit the B button during battle. And when you hit the B button, it'll pause the battle. And you can decide to either try to run away or use an item. So there is that. At first, the only item you have is one that heals some of your health. Not a lot of health, like 5 hearts.
3 hearts or something.
Yeah. But by the end of the game, you also have a few other items, specifically one that paralyzes them, which is like really OP. It like always works, and you have 32 of them at all times if you're me. So, so that's fun. But you never actually need to use them, like ever.
Yeah.
Every part of the game is designed where if you've done what you're supposed to do, you will win the battle with like 1 hit point left or whatever. Which is a pretty common joke, actually. It's like, oh, you need the new sword to beat that guard that's like gating the plot. Oh, you got the new sword, time to fight the guard, and you will always beat him with like half a heart of health left.
Yeah,
which is fun.
Yeah, so you make your way up to the palace, and you find out that Princess Tiramisu has already absconded to the town called Alamode, and that Richard has followed. But to get there, you need to raise the bridge switch first. And so then we realize that all the dungeons in this game are side-scrolling action platformers, and this is the main gameplay of this game is side-scrolling platformer, even though the rest of it looks like a Zelda game.
I love side-scrolling dungeons. I love when they would do it in Link's Awakening and to a lesser extent other Zelda games. I love it in Kid Icarus. I love it in Zelda 2, even though I'm so bad at Zelda 2 I can't really do it.
Yeah,
I love side-scrolling dungeons.
It rules. And the challenge in this game that becomes more apparent as it goes on is that, as one of y'all just said, like each time you fight, you're gonna take some damage. Oh, sorry, there is a bit of RNG to the battle. I forgot to mention this.
Who goes first?
Yeah, who goes first in battle? So if you have enough health, if you have enough strength to kill an enemy in one hit, you might kill them instantly and take no damage, or they might get off a pot shot at you first and then you kill them. So that'll slowly whittle away your health. So the goal is to get to the end of the dungeon without losing all your health, which sometimes means,
or at least get to the next magic ball thing.
The magic ball. And sometimes that means avoiding enemies. Sometimes that just means being smart and not retracing your steps by using your transformations properly. Oops, spoilers, there's transformations in this game. And then just figuring out how to navigate this sort of maze-like dungeon, and they get bigger and bigger and bigger as you go on.
And then the final ones are so big that they're kind of not mazes, and they ended up being so easy because you could go anywhere, but they were big, and that's what matters. But we'll get there. So in this dungeon, I died a lot because there's no penalty to death, and so I was playing everything super risky. And I figured, like, oh, they would take my gold because it's a Dragon Quest and you wake up in the hospital. But no, you just have to go back to town, and that's it.
The person who saved you and took you to the hospital did not steal half of your gold on the way, thank God.
Oh, we forgot to say, when you first arrive in town, a little kid comes and gives you that first item we mentioned that restores your health. It's wine. He's like, here, take this wine. And the mother comes up and talks to you and says, he wanted to give that to you. And the prince is just like, I'm moved beyond words. And another gold bag appears in front of him, and it counts down 1,000,000 coins, so he's giving her 1,000,000 coins for this, and then she's like, no, I can't accept this, and he's like, money is no object to the Prince of Sable, and 1,000,000 more gold coins just appear in your inventory.
Yeah, so he goes from 1,000,000 down to 0, and then it ticks back up to 1,000,000.
That's so great. So I died a lot, was taken back to the town, and on your way there was an earthquake, and you didn't think anything about it, but when you go back, the earthquake destroyed the town, and the only place that's still standing is the hospital and that family's house, and they're like, yeah, we're helping everybody that was hurt in the earthquake. They're all in the hospital now.
Oh, man, I didn't actually go back. I didn't die.
I guess he never died.
Yeah. I died a lot.
Yeah, it's actually pretty dramatic. Like, you were just in that hospital exploring, and then you're there again, and you're like, oh God, what happened? Also, when you talked to that lady, the same lady before, she's like, oh, we used the $1 million you gave us to start to help the injured. So that's cool.
That's nice.
Yeah, it is nice, just like the next screenshot that I have here.
So in the dungeon, you run into this guy named Jam, who's a scoundrel, and he's like, man, this dungeon is hard. I'm going to swim instead of raise the bridge. So you walk past him like one screen and flip the switch to raise the bridge, and then he's super mad at you as you just casually stroll across the bridge, and he's swimming, and thus starts a rivalry that lasts until the end of the game.
Yeah. Well, also importantly, it turns out, well, you find this out in a second, you find out that they think that you obviously must be a Crokian, because only a Crokian guard would know how to lower that bridge. Apparently you can't just, waltz in there and do it. And this guy's not a complete idiot. You can't just waltz in there. There is a little bit of an exploration and such, and that's just how the game teaches you, like, oh yeah, the guard is guarding the switch, so you have to do the dungeon to get the new sword, and then you can beat the guard. The end. Actually, I think in this case it was a shield, but whatever. But yeah, so then they mug you and they beat the shit out of you because
and take all your money.
They take all your money. And then
well, technically he does that after the bridge when you get into Ala mode.
Right. He does that later. That's right.
Yeah. Because he went into Ala mode and he was like, hey, this guy is a Crokian and everyone hides. You go into all the houses and they're empty. Then you go into the item shop and that's where he steals all your money. And then he mugs you and you wake up in the hospital. And so then after you wake up in the hospital, you hear about a witch in the forest who can help you save the princess. And that Richard already left to go get her, but he hasn't been heard from since. So you head to the woods to find him. On your way there, there's a frog that like ribbits at you a lot and then starts following you, which is cool because in a second we find out that's Richard, because in case you couldn't tell by the game being called For the Frog, the Bell Tolls, frogs are important. But
I love the ribbit sound that plays when you talk to frogs.
Yes, it's very, very good. All the animations on the frogs are they're really cute. They're cute frogs.
Yeah, they're really good. I was a little sad that you don't have the same frog animations and stuff.
Yeah,
but
you're some weird frog who walks like a man.
Yeah. Actually, I guess I was going to mention that later, but I guess I'll mention it now. I find it just stupendously funny. I was like hollering. Later you get turned into a frog and Richard's following you, and literally he's doing a frog hop animation. He's doing like hop, 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 and you're just like putting one leg in front of the other, pumping your arms, power walking like, I'm walking. Hey, I'm walking here. It's just such a hilarious contrast. And they never explain it, like why either you're weird for not figuring out how to frog hop, or Richard just decided to just, well, I guess I'm a frog. Why would I act like a man anymore? Like,
right. So on the way to the witch's hut, there's some normal woods puzzles and then a lost woods puzzle. And I love in the lost woods puzzle when you finish it, he's like, I feel like I've done this before. Mentioning the lost woods puzzle in Zelda 1. Not, of course, not Link's Awakening, because that one wasn't out yet.
There's a lost woods puzzle, but like literally at the entrance, there's just a sign that tells you what the solution is.
It just tells you, yeah. It's like completely pointless. I love it.
It's not
so
cryptic
good.
in any way.
No, it's good. So then when you wind up at the witch's hut, and her name is, I forgot it for most of my notes, and I remembered it at the end. It's Mandola. That's her name. Nelson Mandola. So, when you get there, she offers you a potion, and the prince literally says, well, I have no reason to be suspicious. And he downs it. And then,
even though he says that, you can still say yes or no. So I said no like 5 times, and each time she's like, come on, do it. Don't you want to be the hero? And then eventually, the final thing she says, if you keep saying no, she's like, do you want to let Richard save the princess before you? And then after she says that, the only 2 options are drink and drink with a bunch of exclamation points after it. So for this whole portion of the game, his whole motivation is not I gotta save the princess, but I gotta save the princess before Richard does.
Yeah.
So you're always one step behind Richard. Richard's being the big hero, because at the beginning it actually says that you and Richard are the same. Y'all are equal in every way. Y'all are equal in looks. Mm-hmm. Y'all are equal in charm and grace. Y'all are equal in popularity, except that he's really good at fighting and you're not.
Yeah.
So she gives you a potion that you have no reason to be suspicious of, and you down it, and at first, nothing happens.
Yeah, and you're like, everything is fine. So outside, there's Jam, who has your money from before, and you're like, hey, give it back. And he throws it into a well and dives in, so you dive in after him, and you see that he landed on a ledge, but you just fall into the well. And it's been said a couple times that you can't swim. Like, there's like a big thing of water in the palace, and you come up to it, and it comes up. It's like, oh, all this water. I can't swim. I'll sink like a rock or whatever. And so you miss the ledge, and you're like, oh crap, I'm going to drown. And he says something like, I wish I would have been a better son, or something like that. Like,
yep, that's exactly what he says.
Facing death. And then he's like, oh wait, I can breathe. And then the camera pans down, and you're a frog now, and you then get to do froggy things. And so you go through this tunnel, and it comes out in a la mode, and then there's Richard, who you now can understand because you speak frog now, and he says that he was also turned into a frog, but he's going to work with you to save the princess and stop the Croakians. So we're going to go back to the palace and explore that place that we needed to breathe underwater for. And we do so and get the diamond key, but there's a whole bunch more places that we can't get to. So the palace is like in Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks, where it's like the hub dungeon that you keep coming back to, which I really, really like.
It is like 4 times, and it's like, not just is it big overall, but each time you go, it's like, it's a long-ass dungeon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really cool. So when you're going through that one, you overhear the Croakians' plans, which I don't really remember what they are. It's something like we want the princess, but we don't actually have her yet, or something like that is what you overhear. So you report back to Richard, and he decides that he's going to watch over the palace while you find a way to cure your frogginess. And you're both to cure everybody's frogginess. It becomes a point of contention that you don't cure everybody yet. So you head back to the witch, and she gives you a human potion that costs however much money you have on you. So it was like $1,088,000 for me.
Yeah, for me it was 1 million. She's like, this is a fancy potion. Let's see, it'll cost you 1,167 nuts. And that's
the money's called
whatever
nuts.
Precise number you have.
Yeah,
they're always giving people
so
nuts.
All right, giving him the nuts.
And my favorite thing is in one chest somewhere you find 2 nuts, and I gibbled for like 100 years.
So, yeah, you haven't had chance to spend money at this point, so your money is currently 1 million plus whatever you found, and that's how much you asked for.
I don't.
Yep.
Sure. Haven't you had to buy a sword or a shield or something at this point?
No.
Nope. No purchase yet. Because the town gets destroyed, and that was your only town beforehand.
What about Alamode?
And so then...
They don't sell anything because they think you're a Crokian.
Weird.
Yeah.
Because I totally remembered...
You remember wrong.
Well, no.
Because when you go into the item shop, Jam beats the shit out of you.
Well, because
so
I
that's...
specifically remember, though, because I feel like I'll forget something, because I specifically remember, like, at one point, as a gating thing, you need to get a better shield or a better sword. I know you find those in dungeons, too, but at one point, you need to buy one. And then, so I do. Oh, wait, but I've had the $1 million the entire time.
Because Jam probably had your $1 million at that point. Because he steals it from you in Alamode, so you don't have any. So then you buy the saw and stuff to get through the trees.
There you go.
In the woods.
Yeah. So you have bought some stuff. So the reason why
he stole it from you.
That's important. It's not just because I'm like, I got to be right. It's because I didn't know what form this game was going to take. So because it's a very strange game, it seems like it's constantly shifting. So I remember thinking it was very, very funny how so far the money had never been like a real thing. The money existed, but just for plot reasons. And then finally it's like, the game invented plot reasons for me to lose all my money, so now I legitimately have lost all my money. Now the game's starting for real. Aha, I can see there's shops, there's things I need to buy. Now there's an actual game with actual money, actual shops. But then, not that long after, you get turned into a frog. And then when you get turned into a frog, not too far after that, you acquire some money, and then there's a text box where it's like, but what good is money to a frog? And I just found that so funny. I'm like, so like having money was just like a fake thing that we did for the first hour of the game, which is not true, but that was my thought at the time because the game's just so surprising.
Because I didn't think that this game would be transformations. I thought this would be like a frog game, and so I didn't think you would turn back to a human and do more human stuff later.
Exactly. So I was like, I guess the shots were just like a joke.
Yeah. But yeah, so you where was I? So she takes all your money and gives you it gives you the potion. You drink, but before you can drink it, she's like, "All right, I'm outie," and she leaves. So you drink it, and the potion doesn't work. So you're like, "Well, I'm going to go follow her." So you follow her to the hot springs, where you do some froggy dungeons and avoid all sorts of froggy combat because the frog, even at the end of the game, when you have a super high strength, you can't beat nothing except bugs.
You eat bugs. And even at one point, there's a giant caterpillar that you have to fight as a boss, and it's hard. As hard as anything is in this game, but as a frog, you can just eat it section by section.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't even go into battle mode. Like, you walk into the enemy. If the enemy is anything that can be classified as a bug, then the frog runs into it, it disappears, and you gain health. It owns. One point I want to note is that there is... I forget the dialogue exactly, I didn't save it, but there is some reason why you drink the potion. Why you buy it, you do have to be sort of coerced into doing it. I forget how exactly, but it's not just like, here, have this potion. Okay. I think she like says like, come on, don't you want to be the hero? Or she says like, or maybe she even like kind of forces you to do it, and that's important later. It's important that that's how it goes down.
Yeah. So you get over to the hot springs, and there's a snake there who kicks your ass because you're a frog, and then you imagine that your waifu is taking care of you, but it turns out to just be the witch, and so you go to beat her up, but you realize that you're a human now, so the thing must have actually worked, and she says that one of the side effects of the human potion is being able to turn into a snake when you eat an egg. For some reason, I guess that's a side effect. But you can turn back to human when you eat joy fruit, which is actually poison. It just knocks you out from the poison, and passing out is what turns you into a human. So it's great because she's like, and every time you pass out or faint, you'll turn back into a human. And he's like, so I have to like kill myself? And she's like, of course not. Just eat this poison.
Yeah. So to reiterate, going between snake and human is easy, or frog. If you eat the fruit, you're human. End of story. If You if you die, you're also human, which is useful. But most importantly, eat the fruit, you're human. Eat the egg, you're a snake. But becoming a frog is more nuanced. To become a frog, you have to touch cold water.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very level design dependent when you can turn into a frog.
And there's cool puzzles at one point where like you need to you walk through this thing and it's like a fairly like big slog of like killing things, but there's a bit of water way at the front, so you can jump in the water, then make your way through, and now it's not a slog of killing things. It's like a stealth mission to get past everything to then be able to do the thing at the end with the frog, and it's really cool. I really like it.
Yeah.
But so with your snake powers in hand, you make your way to the next town, Spring Hill, where they have a bell that welcomes spring. The witch says that you should talk to them about ringing it early so that everyone will turn back into human. Spring Hill, however, has been fucked by an earthquake, and their bell is broken. A merchant comes in and offers to pay to have the bell fixed, which happens to cost the exact price that Mandola stole from you earlier. Yep. And so you think that that Mandola was working for the bad guys because reasons. I don't know why the prince says that, but he thinks that Mandola's
because
evil.
She connived to steal all your money and,
break the bell. Yeah, but he doesn't then distrust the merchant, who obviously has Mandola's amount of money. So he doesn't quite think it all the way through, as we can tell by the twist ending of the game, which I actually didn't see coming. As much as I'm making fun of the main character, I was right there with him this whole time.
Me at all. No, I thought, yeah. Mandola does this thing the whole time where, like, she very clearly seems like she's bad. Like, every time she does something, she, like, cackles. But then, every time you thwart her in some way and do something that would seem that it would go against her plan as being a bad person, she'll say something like, "Oh, all according to my plan, haha." You know what I mean? So you're like, oh, maybe she's just being sneaky, but it's actually good or whatever. And then you forget about that for most of the game.
Yeah. So he's like, well, I can pay to have it fixed, but I was going to buy gold with this money. So if you find me gold, I'll pay to have it fixed and just take your gold. And so you head towards the mine, but you have to find out where it is. And this is where I got lost for a few hours because I can't follow directions. You find this guy named Cellarman, and he's like, I have a friend in Alamode who knows where the gold is. So it teleports you to Alamode, where everyone's been kidnapped and it's being occupied by Crokians. One of the houses is being guarded instead of just patrolled, so you go in and save a dude and run everyone out of town. But what I did is I saw that it was occupied. I went back to Cellarman to update him, and he's just like, talk to my friend. So I go back to Alamode. I kill everybody. Didn't realize that one of them was guarding it. I guess I just came in close by him and attacked him before I realized he wasn't moving or something. And so I did it again. I'm like, okay, but the monsters all respawn. So like, what am I supposed to be doing? And I went back to Cellarman, and I went back again. And so then I go in and I save the guy, and he's like, oh, everyone is in the dungeon at the palace. So I then go back to Cellarman, and he still doesn't want to do it. And this is across like 3 dungeons that I keep backtracking through.
Keep going to Cellarman?
Because I keep thinking like, oh, like things have been updated. Let me go and see if the quest has changed. But no, I'm supposed to follow that all the way through. I'm stupid. I'm dumb. That's what this is. I wasted a lot of hours walking back through the snake dungeon. But so yeah, you head off to the palace to find the people who are taken to the dungeon if you're smart. So when you're on your way to the dungeon, all the frogs beat you up because they saw you as human, so they know that you took a potion instead of saving everyone. So you do the next palace dungeon by yourself, even though Richard said he would be there to help you, and it's kind of cool.
Yeah. Oh, that's really what it is. It's not the witch coerces you. Oh, I mean, she does. She's a fast talker. But it's that you didn't know you were going to need $1,067 to fix the bell. You didn't know that. So you're like, oh, I'm going to turn back into a human on the way to do my quest to turn everyone else human. And then later it turns out you could have easily used that money to turn everyone else into a human. And so that's why all the frogs are like, you sold us out. You saved yourself instead of saving the rest of us.
Instead of us.
I can't. And they're all like so disappointed. All of them are. They're like, one of them just goes like, Prince Freg, ... And a lot of them are like, I can't believe you would betray us. Or like, did you really betray us? And one or two of them are even like, no, I still believe in you. I don't think you betrayed us. It's good shit.
Yeah, so this dungeon has you doing a lot of transformations. It's kind of like a test of your metal.
First, like, real dungeon.
I ran out of eggs one snake hole away from the end. Like, you're supposed to go through the snake hole and it'll drop you back to the beginning or the middle to go and fight the guard after you get the key. And I didn't have enough eggs, so I had to warp out, go buy eggs, and then do the entire dungeon over again to get back to the guard. And there's instant kill lava, so I save scummed because I suck. Because there is no penalty for dying except you have to do it over again, and I didn't want to do that. So
and you can save at will,
I made restore points. Yeah. So after you free everyone, the frogs don't hate you that much anymore, and you learn from the guy, the friend from Alamode, that the mine is on top of Mount Pudding. So now you go back to Cellar Man, and he's like, oh, Mount Pudding? It's through this door that I was guarding this whole time. And so you make your way to the top of Mount Pudding, but there's a huge-ass boulder in the way, and your puny human muscles can't move it. So you go back to the merchant, and you ask him for help, and he says that your wristband is a shitty Nintendo product, and they must have new versions nowadays. So he gives you his boat to Nintendo Forest. And at the factory, there's a quote-unquote mini game where you have to buy the right food to impress the doctor, but he's just expensive, so you buy the sushi, and it's really not a big deal. It's not really like you have to, like, match him or it's any different. You buy the cheap one because you're a cheapskate, and you go in there, and he's like, oh, only if you... I only talk to people who share my taste. This sushi is delicious. So you go buy sushi. There's like a bunch of choices, but you just buy sushi.
His name is Dr. Ivan Knit. Is that a pun?
Yeah.
No, his full name is Ivan Nitwit.
When did they say
Knit is his middle name. At some point, I don't know, because it's in my notes. So
I didn't notice.
It's there
that.
somewhere. I think an NPC talks about the famous Dr. Nitwit that's there.
Okay.
But
I was like trying to spell it backwards and stuff. Like, is this a Dr. Kintober situation?
You've been playing too much Dragon Quest.
Yes.
Expecting everything to be a really awful pun. I realize now, Sam, the issue that I thought I was on the wrong translation, because you said in the text chat, you said that you love the Hugh Jass text bits. And I thought that this game had some kind of elaborate Hugh Jass pun, like a character's name is Hugh Jass. Now I realize that you were just saying you like the parts where the text is really big, and the huge ass pun was your own pun that you were making because you're you and you're a dumbass.
Yes.
I understand now.
Okay.
The whole game I was like, when's Hugh Jass going to show up?
That's so funny. I always spell huge ass as Hugh Jass.
One funny thing about this part, actually, there's one little detail actually that I really love. It's not just about getting the sushi, because after you, I'd already noticed that if you go to the shop sells wasabi, but then the shopkeeper says, "Oh, we're all out of wasabi." So right off the bat, I'm thinking, okay, I think I see where this is going. So when you get your sushi and sit next to the guy, he's like, "Aha! I see you're a man of taste as well." And then he's like, he's like, "Do you think that this sushi is delicious?" And if you say yes, he's like, "Fuck you. You know nothing about food." So you have to like repeat the whole cycle again. But you have to say,
well, you don't have to buy anything. You can just talk to him.
Really? I tried that.
You can just talk to him
I
again.
must have done it wrong. I must have like oriented my character wrong, because I thought that he didn't respond to me trying to talk to him. I thought I had to go around and buy sushi again. Anyway, so then you talk to him and he's like, "No, you have to say no." And the thing is, I kind of figured, because I was like, "Oh, it needs wasabi on it," because I've seen the wasabi in the shop. But I wanted to see what happened anyway. So anyway, yeah, he's like, "Isn't this sushi good?" And you have to say no. And he's like, "No, what's wrong with it?" And then you say like, the toppings, and then he says like, "You're an idiot, he doesn't understand taste," but then he is like, actually, yes, it needs wasabi on it. If we're all out of wasabi, go to the wasabi forest and get me some wasabi, and I'll give you what you want.
And so the wasabi forest is cool. I really like it. It shows you where you want to go early on, but then the critical path snakes. Get it? It snakes back and forth, and you're a snake. So it snakes its way back and forth through all screens you've been to before, and so it feels like tightly wound and compact and really cool to explore, because you'll be like, well, how do I get up there? And then like 2 screens later, you're like, oh, I'm up here now, and it's really cool. Yeah, you use all of your forms in a lot of different ways to progress, and there's one puzzle that I loved a lot where you have 2 blocks that you want to stack, but you can't. But the only hole you have to like push it over is only half a block high, so like you can't do it. So you have to like teeter it off of the edge and like bounce the other one on it using sprite-based game physics, and it's cool. Like it took me forever to figure it out. I had a real big aha moment at that point.
I'm ashamed of how long it took me to figure that one out.
And one important thing here to note is that you do learn one of the final mechanics in the game, which is that as a snake, this is a very specific single kind of enemy where if you bite this enemy, it'll turn it into a block. But then to push it, you have to be human, and human and snake have different movement capabilities. So yeah, it is interesting. It's like usually it's just like you bite it, you make a block, you push it as a human, but then after that point, you might want to be a snake for another reason, and then it's just like, what do I do? It's good shit.
Yeah, I like it a lot. So at the bottom of the dungeon, there's a Krokian who's like, don't take our wasabi again, and makes me think this entire conflict is just the pastry people are beating up the Krokians to take their wasabi. Because he used the word again there, and it makes me think there's a whole lot deeper lore, and I'm probably going to write a fanfic. But he summons a giant centipede to fight, and it's just to check to see if if you remembered to buy the shield from the item shop, because I didn't the first time, and I looked everywhere in the dungeon for another attack up or something. But what's cool is you kind of see how they try to make things into a real boss fight here, because if you just touch the boss, you'll get damaged, and you only survive with 1 hit, so you have to only hit his weak point to initiate the fight. It's still easy, but they're at least trying to make the fights not fake.
In Zelda fashion, just like a text box earlier in the game tells you, you have to hit its tail. So you avoid its head, you do the tail, but then as soon as you contact the tail, it's like a regular fight, and then you beat it.
Yeah. So you get some wasabi, and you take it back to the doctor, and he loves the wasabi, so he takes you to his lab to give you the hyper glove, and you say, wow, this looks just like a work glove.
That's probably my favorite bit in the whole game. The reason Sam says it like that is like when he says hyper glove, it like is fancy big text, and it scrolls across the screen very slowly for drama, and then you say, oh really, it looks just like a, and then it does the same thing but it just says work glove. And then the guy insists, it's not a work glove, I swear to God, it's not a work glove, here, just take it.
And so you take it, and then their item description on the bottom says, you got the work glove, and the doctor's like, it's not a work glove. It's so good. He says he's then working on an item to control animals, so if we ever need that, we can come back and see him. So,
funny thing, I didn't parse that as foreshadowing. I actually parsed that as like I thought they were making a joke about Pokemon. Like maybe they had just started developing Pokemon at Nintendo, and they were making a reference to the game that was going to come out a few years later.
That's funny. So we head to Mount Pudding, where it's too cold for frogs and snakes. So if you're me or Bernard, we explore too much and have to do each dungeon 3 times. But because you're supposed to go to the Eskimo village, where they tell you to explore the ice cavern, and then when you go to the ice cavern, you need a spell to get across, so you go to Ask in Town. In town, they say the elder will know what to do, but he lives in a hut on the cape. So when you go to the cape, there's a frog in the way, but you can't turn into a frog to talk to it, so you go back to town to ask Riding Hood what to do, and she's not there, so she ran away to the forest. So if you go forest, cape, ice cavern, town, like me and Bernard did, you have a real bad time.
I also did do the forest, where you go through the forest, and at the end of the forest is literally just some stairs that go down into an underground room, and there's nothing in there.
Yeah, I was confused.
By the way, I should say, the underground rooms are all the underground rooms from Zelda 1. Like that's
Zelda 1
the biggest. It's always like the first one you go to, there's an old guy in it, and he goes, "Oh, it's my job to hand things to adventurers. Please take the item in this chest."
And also just the fact that every time you get to one, it's always by cutting down a bush. You cut down a bush, you go down some stairs, and usually, a lot of the time you'll just get some nuts. But sometimes you will get in a. So we forgot to mention the way you increase your stats in this game. You have the stats are attack power, defense power, health, and speed, and all of those go up when you find exploratory items to get them. And I was thinking you always needed them. Like that's how the game works. You find those items and then you progress. But considering the items like wasabi and the wine you can restore your health, I bet there's probably some parts where you don't actually need it.
Maybe
you probably sequence break to a small.
The only time I tried to use the wasabi was on the mammoth, where it didn't work. So
that's the thing. You never need to use it.
I was
but
discouraged
it
from using it
a lot. What happens is if you use it, it stuns the enemy, which means they don't hurt you for 1 to 3 turns. It wears off, but you can just use it again, and you can use it before it wears off. So you can kill any regular mob in the game with full health, and even plotty mobs. It might be like, oh, you can't hurt this guy if you don't have the new sword, but you can beat him if you haven't found the life up because you can just use wasabi.
Okay,
so
that's cool.
I didn't do any of that. I always found all the items, but I'm realizing now that you totally could speedrun your way a little bit through this and avoid some of the items, which is cool.
Yeah. So, so you make your way through the forest and you find Red Riding Hood, and she tells you that her guardian is a creepo that like. It's kind of hinted that like he sexually assaults her, but at least just is mean to her is what's in the text. So you beat him up, and she gives you a hood that lets you talk to frogs as a human. And so you go back to the Cape, where the elder refuses to teach you the spell because there's a huge mammoth in there that he trapped a while back to save the village, and he doesn't want to risk waking it. But you annoy him into giving it to you. Like he runs away, and you keep following him, and he's like, "Leave me alone." And you do that like 16 times to get him to give it to you.
There's actually a cute puzzle here. When you go to you go to the hut, you speak to the frog outside, since you now have the frog's lair, which is what it's called. And the frog's like, okay, I'll go see if he'll talk to you. So the frog goes into the hut, and then comes back out a second later and says he doesn't want to speak with anyone. And if you're me, it takes you a very long time to figure out that when he walks into the hut, you still have freedom of movement.
Control.
So you can just walk into the hut right after him. And the frog is like, yo, what the fuck? Get out of here.
Yeah, this would be ages. Because, the way the games usually work is that's a scripted scene. He leaves, he comes back, you wait, you don't have control of your character. When that happens, I actually literally, went back to the town to talk with Red Riding Hood and be like, the frog didn't want to talk to me. But then she gave me the same dialogue. So I go back. And then I'm like, what if I talk to this guy 10 times in a row? Will it work? No. And then eventually I was just like, wait. Actually, it might have been on accident. And I had just been holding down the up button or something. And then I'm just like, oh, I can just walk in.
I didn't even realize there was a puzzle there because I must have just been holding the up button or something because I just walked right in. I did it my first time.
Wait right there and be respectful of his space. I'm respectful of his space.
Well, not me. He's a dumb frog. Back to the cavern, you summon some floating platforms that help you make your way through, and along the way you see a big old mammoth trapped in ice. It's the one that the elder was talking about.
Conspicuously blocking a ladder.
Yep.
Yeah. And on the other side of the mountain, you are now on the top of the mountain, which is a higher elevation than the ice level, so of course it's a desert. And
I think perhaps you went over the mountain, or perhaps
no, because they say that the mine where we're headed is at the summit of Mount Pudding.
Oh yeah, that's true. Whatever.
So
Prince Greg is climbing the mountain. Why is he climbing the mountain?
In the desert, you go into town to ask about the mine, but everyone is drunk and refuses to work because the mine has become very dangerous and occupied by Crokians, so no one wants to work anymore.
And notably, everything is very Western themed. There's cacti, there's barrels. I mean, that's it. There's cacti and there's barrels.
And a saloon is the big...
A very large saloon.
Enormous saloon.
A giant saloon. Like indoor spaces in this game besides the palace are one screen, but the saloon is 3 screens because it has to be giant. So you find a well that lets you turn into a frog so that you can sneak past the Crokians, because Crokians, as you could probably guess by the name Crokian, is they're frog people. So when you're a frog, you can just talk to them instead of fighting them. And then you sneak past all the Crokians and you get inside the mine, and there's one guy that's still working in there. He's like trapped by all the Crokians outside, and he says that the dig is really hard, so you'll need professional help to get through. So you go back to town and post the job on a bulletin board, but nobody ever comes because nobody wants to work. So you even go around town to ask people, and their thing changes. Instead of just drunk noises, they're like, excavating work, no way.
Excavate. They all say excavate, no way.
It's so good. And so when you find this one lady, she says that her husband is too lazy and always drunk, and she wants you to go and get him from the bar. So when you do, he ends up looking at your ad and decides to get his act together and take the job with some friends. And now they beat up the mobs like it's nothing. Like you walk through and they're just like, hey, nobody touches the prince. And then they beat them up for you. And so you get to waltz your way into the mine. And then the working class is fully aware that the ruling class is going to exploit their labor. So they demand payment up front, which is really good.
They really should be demanding more, because you're literally getting gold that's worth, a million nuts. And they're like... He's like, how much do I pay you? And they're like, 100 nuts. And he's like, oh, I gotta pay you 100. I'm like, guys, why are you accepting?
Just go steal the gold.
Why are you accepting wages? Like, what? Just get the gold yourself. You don't need a boss to tell you to go get the gold. At least do a profit share of some sort.
Anyway. Right. So you have a really easy dungeon where you explore and find the money to pay your workers. There's like 1 or 2 puzzles. Mostly it's climb a ladder. There's the box. Get the box. Give it to the guys. And so at the far end of it, there's a big golden sword called the Snake Killer, and it's stuck in a stone. So you pull it out. But the mine was actually a gold volcano, which is why nobody wanted to mine there anymore, and the Crokians were just an excuse. So everybody runs away from the molten gold, and you fall into the water. And
notably, as you're going, you say, "Are you about to say this?" Maybe you weren't. There's some dialogue. As you're running away from the molten gold, Prince Freg says, "Did y'all know this was a volcano?" And one of them goes, and they go, and all 5 of them say in this order, they go, "Yep, sure did. Yep, we all knew. We just wanted the money." Also, I'm sorry, I was going to bring this up and it was relevant, and then I forgot. One very important thing that you learn after like the second castle dungeon, is that the prince whatever or king whatever, the bad guy of this game, is a snake. He's a snake, and his entire plan, the reason why he's turning everyone into frogs, is because he's going to eat them, because snakes eat frogs. And that is also why you think that the witch is obviously working for the bad guy, because she's turning people into frogs, right?
Yeah.
And then tricking you and not actually, I don't know, is she really helping you or not? But yeah, so the whole thing is you're he's gonna eat all the snakes once he wakes up. But also the string bell will turn everyone back into humans. So the idea is you go to his throne room, all the frogs, and then you ring the bell, and then you all turn back into humans, and then you kick his ass. Importantly, the reason I thought of that is because all the guards keep talking about how there's a secret in this mine. It's not just about the gold, it's about some secret they're looking for. Obviously, the secret was the snake killer. Obviously, the evil snake bad guy wanted to find the snake killer's sword so that an intrepid hero couldn't find it.
Yeah.
But they fail.
Yeah, so when you run away from the gold, you fall into the water, and the Eskimos save you. And they also say, we keep having to save this guy. So it's been the Eskimos, for some reason, have saved you from every time you've died this whole game. They gave lip service to the Dragon Quest of it all. And so they save you, but the molten gold froze in the side of the glacier into a giant boulder of gold. And before you can figure out how to pick it up, someone comes in and says that the gold lava melted the mammoth out, and now he's pissed and attacking everything. So you run into town, and the elder is fighting it, but getting his ass kicked. He tells you that he needs the mirror shield to distract the mammoth so that he can win.
So you go to the ice cavern. Have something called a mirror shield in it.
Right? So you go back to the ice cavern, which has opened up, and you get the mirror shield from in there. Then back in town. Sorry, there's no time travel in this game. Back in town, you fight the mammoth and lose, and your death thing is like, but I had the mirror shield. Why did I still lose? And the mirror shield isn't enough, and too bad you don't know any way to control animals. Oh, wait, we do. So you go all the way back to Nintendo, and Nitwit gives you a helmet to control the mammoth, and he gives you a flute to call him if you ever need him again. And one of the NPCs says that his goal in life or something is to make a giant robot suit. And so this is a Power Rangers reference because he gives you a flute to call a robot suit. Oh. But we don't know specifically that that's a robot suit until later. So back in town, we go back into town, distract the mammoth with the mirror, slap the helmet on it, and save the day. So then you make the mammoth carry the gold back to the merchant, who fixes the bell. You get word that all the frogs in a la mode have been captured, so you go to the palace to break the frogs out, and you do so. At the end of that dungeon, Richard isn't with the other frogs, and you get captured and knocked out. So now you're in the dungeon yourself, and you meet Madeline, the daughter of a dude from a la mode who mentioned his daughter like an hour and a half ago. And she says that they were trying to use her as a replacement princess because they still haven't found Tiramisu. The initial rumor at the beginning that they had kidnapped Tiramisu was just propaganda, and they actually had captured Madeline, and were just going to try and trick the snake into thinking it was the princess because they couldn't find her in time. So you walk around the room trying to figure out what to do because you don't have your items, but Jam shows up and he breaks you out of the prison. So you and Madeline do a dungeon without your items to unlock them, which is always cool. I always love when games do that, make you be level 1 again way at the end of the game.
Well, funny enough, you do have to fight a couple of bad guys during this part, and I guess those attack up items you kept getting, I guess those matter a lot more than your actual weapons, because even without your weapons, you're still like kicking their ass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Actually, the way that dungeon works is there's always two in most screens. There's 2 kinds of guards, so often you might have to bypass the stronger guards and fight the weaker guards, which is cool.
Yeah. And so when you get her to the front, you tell her to go and ring the bell because you're going to go fuck up a snake. And then you start the final dungeon, which was way too easy to be the final dungeon. I did it in one go. You're mostly human for it. You don't have to do a whole lot of transforming, but if you transform into a snake, you can bypass a lot of the puzzles, which is thematic because the boss is a snake. So of course he doesn't have to do all the puzzles, but that does just make it really easy. So it's like a cool little world building thing, but then I just turn into a snake and skip all the puzzles. When you get to the end, the bad guy is a tiny little snake.
One extremely tiny little detail.
Okay.
You also find a tablet that tells you that the golden snake killer sword, its true power will be unlocked when true friendship is seen, or the face of true friendship.
Oh.
And
I never read the tablet. It was like, oh, you found the tablet. I'm like, that's cool. I thought it would be like a plot thing later. I never went to investigate it.
Like the gold sword will shine and be powerful when you see the face of true friendship. And that's funny because like the gold sword's been working all along. It's been kicking ass. So I'm like, that's weird.
Yeah.
But that's important in 5 seconds.
Yeah. So when you get to the end, the bad guy's a snake, and he's and you're a human, and you keep making fun of how easy it is and how anticlimactic that the final boss is so small. So like it's a snake and it's asleep, so it's like it goes into a battle, and like every turn you come out and say something because like you're just destroying its health. But when you get it down to 1 heart, he wakes up and becomes a giant snake. And he says that the snake killer is useless, it's powerless, it's not a real sword, so it can't hurt him. So he starts kicking your ass. But you can pause the battle to blow the flute. And then Nitwit shows up in a giant fucking Megazord, and he kicks the snake's ass and heals you. But of course, the healing waves heal the snake too. So, fuck. Then all the frogs show up, and they try and help, but they all get eaten. And when they show up, Richard is like, even as a frog, we're better swordsmen than you. Which is great.
They just get
and so,
yeah, one by one, they all get eaten, and all that's left is Richard.
Yeah, and so when they get eaten, Richard's about to go and jump in and die with his comrades, but then the bell of spring gets rung, and all the frogs turn into humans inside his stomach, and they kick his ass from the inside. So now Snake Man, he spits them out, and you see from his mouth, like a human sprite just gets thrown off the side of the castle. And so now he's mad, so he summons a force field. And Richard tries to stop him, but he's kicked back. Both princes are afraid they're going to die until a sword comes out of nowhere and hits the snake in the eye. And the snake complains about not being able to see well, and sure enough, he has a blind spot now, and there's a hole in the force field. So the merchant comes in, says that it's spring and their friendship activated the snake killer. So you brandish it and now it's glowing. And so for the final boss, you have to time your stabs until the hole in the force field is in front of you, and then you jump in and stab him. And you stab.
It's like I'm trying to unlock a new statue thingy in
Spirit.
Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Yeah, I'm trying to think of Spirit.
Yeah, it's like Dragoon editions in Legend of Dragoon. Oh, yeah. And so you stab him until he dies, and so then we're excited, and the merchant's like, okay, well, I have something to show you, and he takes you up to the throne, and sure enough, Mandola is on the throne. And you're like, what? Was she just trying to steal the throne the whole time? But then she reveals that she has been Tiramisu the whole time, a.k.a. your waifu that you saw earlier. And she's been using her magic to stay hidden. And the merchant was actually her pet crow that so she's been guiding us the whole time. She was protecting people by turning them into the frogs so that the Crokians wouldn't fight them. But then the snake was supposed to wake up before spring, so she needed to give you the ability to turn back so that you could ring the bell early to bring spring back, so that people wouldn't be eaten by the
This
snake.
is basically a very elaborate, political assassination, basically, that she made you do by framing it as if she'd been kidnapped and you were being a hero, but really it was like she just wanted to kill this guy.
Well, no, but he was an invader at the very least.
I mean, he's bad for sure, yeah. But it was this very elaborate, complex plot. How she wasn't actually kidnapped. She had to get you to come over here. Blah blah blah. It was good shit.
It's good. So Richard apologizes for not believing in you, and the merchant says that Tiramisu will need help ruling, and since there's 2 princes handy, you decide to have a duel for it. It goes back and forth, but it looks like you'll win at the end, and you knock Richard's sword away, but you stop and let him catch up. So he wins, but he recognizes your nobility in not taking the fight while it was unfair, so he concedes and lets you marry Tiramisu. So he heads back to his kingdom, and you ask the merchant if Mandola was the opposite of Tiramisu, or what part of her was real, and he just laughs and asks what you're afraid of, and then everyone dances over the credits.
Yep. Yeah, the ending is specifically, he's like, hey, so she was disguised as Mandola, so she's the opposite of Mandola in every way, right? And I forget what he says exactly, but he's just like...
He says... what you're scared of is the exact same, or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is
something
vague.
I'm guessing it just means no, she's a bitch.
Because she was mean. Yeah, she was a bitch.
You just married someone who is going to be manipulating you and being sneaky and fucking with you constantly forever.
Good job. But yeah. I squeezed in all of my memorable moments as I was going. Was there other ones that you guys had?
Yes. For one thing, when you are having the dream sequences where you see tiramisu and then it turns out to be mandola, it's these beautiful like close-ups where you have like a giant portrait of the person.
It's very Phantasy Star.
Yeah, it's just beautiful. I love it. And also, one thing that we didn't mention is that the merchant Jinbi says he's from Japan.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Also, at one point after he shows up, one of the townspeople is like, a weird foreigner set up a shop in our town. I'm like, you can't just call someone a weird foreigner.
I mean, he is weird and he is a foreigner.
Yes.
But you can't just call him a weird foreigner.
We pretty much got all of mine. I just love the music in this game, all the tracks, and I love the graphics. They're really, really good. I like when a frog says, you go into one room, and the frog says, this place gives me the willies. And all that's happening in that room is there's like a bunch of like skeletons.
Yeah.
It's like decoration. So he's just like, this room's creeping me out.
Yeah, I love that.
It's so good.
I love the repeated use of them saving 1,127 nuts. I love that there's a building that just says egg on it.
That's so good.
Being a snake is really, really fun. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And all the stuff that we already talked about. It's just a really cool game. This game made me realize that, like, genres are fake.
Yeah.
Game design is fake. It's weird how extremely forward-thinking this game was, considering it came out in 1992. It's like, it's so confident. The game's acting like it's not. The game's so confident, you'd think that this was already a kind of game. Like you wouldn't think that they were just making all this shit up and being super innovative and super original. Like, it doesn't act like it's being original. It acts like it's just being, like, regular, despite it not being at all regular.
And, like, there being this really hilarious protagonist who talks a lot is especially crazy because this was in the era of silent protagonists.
Yeah.
Also, the world is enormous. Like, really, really, really big. Like, the dungeons. Okay. Oh, also, another thing I like. The main palace dungeon. It starts off a little not like game design, like level design wise, puzzles and stuff. It's always interesting. It's always quite good. But it's still you're in the dungeon and whatever. But once you go there for like the second to last time to rescue all the frogs, when you think Prince Richard's there, but he's not, you start getting to the upper parts of the palace, and it's the environment design gets like it goes like full like Metroidvania, and I don't mean Metroidvania in like a design wise. It's not like it's open ended, but actually specifically Castlevania specifically, not the Metroid aspect, because like you start to be able to see like the shape of this place, like what the rooms are being on the ceiling. Like there's a combination of like exterior and interior. You go outside of a door, and now you're jumping on clouds, and then you jump across to another part. Actually, the combination of exterior and interior makes me think that a touch point for this game was probably Metroid 2. Also for the Game Boy.
Which, it's R&D 1. They'd probably just finished Metroid 2.
So I think that the level design reminded me a lot of Metroid 2. And again, like, it's just so cool how you're crisscrossing through this place. And again, like, even though you only get to see it one screen at a time, one small non-scrolling screen at a time, you get a feel for what this whole place actually looks like. And like there's like I think 3 distinct towers. And again, like, you don't have to understand what it looks like to get around. You just go the way the level's letting you go. But it's super cool. On the other hand, as you were saying, Sam, the second to last dungeon, or even third to last, are like the real dungeons. And then once it gets towards the end of the game, all the dungeons are like fake. It's weird. It's weird. Like, there's some really, really good level design and good puzzles and very intellectually engaging stuff. But towards the end of the game, it's maybe they just wanted to focus more on the story and the drama and not have you dying or whatever. But they're just like, yeah, no, we're not doing potobos. We're not doing all that smart stuff. Just do the damn level.
Yeah. So while I was playing this game, it reminded me so much of Undertale, where like Undertale looks like an RPG, plays like a shmup, and is actually a dating sim. And this game was the same thing, where it looked like a Zelda and fought like an RPG, but was actually a platformer, and like was aware of all of these things and commenting on all three of the genres at the same time. And it was really cool because like I always thought that Undertale was singular in that aspect, but turns out that there was another Undertale, and it was called For the Frog the Bell Tolls, and it came out in 1991.
This part, I think this must have been, and I know it's easy to say that just because two things do something, one of them must have been an inspiration on the other, but like it's a fact that the Catamites loves this game. He even made a blog post. He used to have a blog that was frogs in games. And he would talk about how this game's great because like every game, like the best main character for a game was a frog. That's a joke he would always make. Anyway, there's a part in this game that was, I think, very obviously was being referenced in Space Funeral. The part where you get a boat and then you go through the overworld and the boat is the same size as your guy. Now, the boat being the same size as your guy happens in any RPG, but the difference is that when that happens in RPGs, you're on a world map. Here, you're like,
this one.
You're not. You're in a to-scale, realistically proportioned area. Yeah. But then when you get in the boat, it's the same size as you.
Yeah, instead of giant guy from world map, it's tiny boat.
Exactly, and it plays like little rinky-dink music that you only get to hear for 5 seconds because you only use the boat for this one little part. So I saw that part.
So
and I thought
there are piers everywhere else that I never used. I don't know if there's optional stuff anywhere.
Because you don't have... I don't think so. I think that's just like plot flavor.
I think it's just...
too.
You can use the canoe that you get at one point to go between piers just to travel between areas a bit more quickly. I did that one time.
There we go.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I never thought to try after I got one because I remember
that does happen, I guess, like shortly before the mammoth thing. But the thing is, as soon as all the water thaws out and you can use the piers, it goes right from there into gotta beat the mammoth, and it goes from gotta beat the mammoth to now I've beaten the mammoth and now we're in the end game, right? So it wasn't exactly exploring.
I just never thought to go and do it. Yeah, but this game was good. It might be the best bonus game we did if we don't count Undertale. I think Undertale is still better than it, but it's damn good.
Yeah,
everyone should go and play it.
It takes maybe 6 hours or so, unless you get stuck a lot. It does require some effort. We keep talking about how it's fake and it's easy, but like you do have to use your brain quite a bit, actually.
The fights are fake, but the platforming and puzzles are fiendish at some point.
So it's not a complete like space out game. So if you do want to play it, make sure you're in the mood to put some effort into something. It's not like literally a VN, much as we might joke about that.
Also, since you mentioned the music, I did want to mention that the music in this game is by Kazumi Totaka, who has been with Nintendo for ages, worked on a bunch of games like Mario Paint and Yoshi's Story and Luigi's Mansion and a bunch of Animal Crossing games. KK Slider is like low-key based on him. And he actually is the voice of Yoshi and a number of other Nintendo characters.
Oh, nice.
That's
super
really awesome.
cool.
Yeah, the music definitely has that, like, I didn't look up what games he composed specifically, but this definitely had that old, like old Nintendo. We're talking like Snow Bros, kind of, like the games that were just called, like, baseball or whatever. It sounded like Hip Tanaka, basically. Because Tanaka and this guy and one or two other guys all had that kind of early Nintendo like arcade game house style to them, that like dopey Tin Pan Alley early Americana style to them, and it's so nice.
Yeah, I love it. Any final thoughts on this game before we
not a
wrap
thought
it up?
on this game, but hey Bernard, Death Stranding trailer, it's up.
Oh my god!
So hell yeah.
I'm so excited for Death Stranding. Oh my gosh!
Let's go watch it, fam.
Yes.
All right. But so that'll do it for the week. If you like what you hear, please consider donating on our Ko-Fi at ko-fi.com/rpgbookclub, or buying a shirt from shop.spreadshirt.com/rpgbookclub. If you want to just drop us a line, you can do so on Twitter at rpgbookclub, or Scarlett's singing Moana right now. But if you want to just drop us a line, you can do so on Twitter at RPG Book Club, in our Discord, which has a link in the description. If you want to review us on iTunes, that helps people find us, and you can save us to your library in Spotify, or just tell your friends to check us out. As always,
just in case you randomly came across this as your first episode, maybe you were searching for the Frog the Bell Tolls or something. Right now, we're currently in the middle of doing the game Dragon Quest V. We're just a little bit into it.
It's good.
So if you decide you want to join us for Dragon Quest V, we've literally played like 4.5 hours of the game at this point. So
yeah, so far we only did the first act. So if you want to go and do Act 1 and then join us next episode, that'll be cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, as always, I am Sam Allman.
Oh, I'm Maddy.
I'm David Bernard Hauk.
Toodaloo.
Bye, nerds.